this egg is one of your problems, and this container is your mind. This egg looks really hard to fix. The cracks, it's going to take a long time to put together. So I'm just going to ignore this egg here. But as the pressure builds, the egg is going to break eventually. Now maybe your mind can handle the first breakdown. But as we let these things build up, and more builds up, eventually it's going to overflow. Avoiding your problems is only going to make them worse in the end. While it may seem easier at first, eventually the pressure gets too much, and now it's much harder to fix the egg than it was before. I want my audience to understand that while running from your problems may seem like it makes it easier at first, it's only going to make it harder in the end. So what is the issue of avoiding your issues? Experiential avoidance is what it's called when you run from your problems rather than dealing with them. So what is experiential avoidance? Experiential avoidance is defined by the drive to avoid stress, by avoidance coping rather than problem-focused coping. A study conducted by the National Institute of Health shows that there's a correlation between self-harm and experiential avoidance. Participants with self-harm reported higher levels of experiential avoidance and avoidance coping. Higher levels of experiential avoidance also increase the frequency of self-harm. Along with that, self-harm is related to an increase of suicide attempts. Building on with that, the Science Direct website said problem-focused coping is the only style associated with less suicidal ideation. Addressing experiential avoidance therapeutically may lead to a reduction in suicidal ideation, decreased helplessness, and a decrease of self-harm. Now, I personally have had my own experiences with experiential avoidance. When I was younger, things weren't great at home. Not going to go into much detail. I didn't tell anybody about it, but that didn't mean I ignored the fact that it was happening. I would cry a lot at school after very bad days at home because I didn't think letting it out was a problem. However, as I started to get older and things started to get worse, kids would come up to me just to call me a crybaby and then leave. And so eventually I realized that maybe just not telling people wasn't enough. I needed to convince myself that it wasn't happening because things were not getting any better at school. So I learned how to shut it all off and pretend it wasn't happening, and honestly, I thought it made my life better. I was much happier pretending that it didn't exist. But the pressure only built up. Eventually, because I wasn't coping with it in the first place, I reverted to more dangerous methods. Self-harm isn't just a bad coping skill, it can be an addiction. Eventually, the pressure continued to build because I still didn't do anything about it besides that. I thought it was helping. It still was not helping, but I did not realize it at the time. Eventually, on October 24th of 2022, I attempted suicide by overdosing. I was in the hospital for 3 days. I only remember one of them. As time went on, and I started realizing I have to face this problem or I'm not going to make it. Eventually, a therapist helped me realize that what was happening at home wasn't okay, and I started working through it. As I started working through it, things got a lot better. I stopped feeling hopeless, I stopped wishing I didn't exist, and I started genuinely enjoying the things I did instead of just doing them to take my mind off of it. Sometimes I wonder how much easier it would have been to get through this if I had just dealt with my problems in the first place instead of ignoring the fact that they were happening. It's definitely taking a lot longer and a lot more effort to cope now that I waited 15 years to do anything about it. Well, that was my experience. Everyone's experience with experiential avoidance is different. However, I hope my story helps further the understanding of this issue. After going through the demonstration, the facts, and my story, I hope the different ways of explaining also have furthered your understanding of this issue. And remember, it's easier to repair your eggs before they break than after they're already broken.